So I have titled my talk as mentioned by you, navigating the journey from the lab to land, the deep tech research to commercialization. So this is what at least I will share my own experiences as to how this can be made possible in a country like India where there are so many additional challenges. The Indian higher education system, if you look at, there are like 1,000 over 1,000 universities right now, and and uh, and of which there are 135 institutions of national importance, and then there are so many other kinds of universities and academic institutions. And in all these institutions today, there are over 40 million students studying. So 40 million, out of which at least 300,000 students are now doing PhD, right? So 41 million students and 300,000 PhD students. So these are the students who are actually doing all the research in our academic institutions, publishing papers, from the country. And if you look at the gender ratio between men and women, it's 50-50 right now. Overall, in the higher education sector, we are doing pretty well when it comes to the gender ratio, which is good. And the current status of R&D, if you look at, I tried to summarize all of that in one slide. In fact, this first bullet captures all the good things and the bad things in the academic institutions today. India currently ranks third in the world for research output. So when it comes to publications and all that, we are doing very well. China comes first, then comes in US, and then comes India. So which is again a good thing. Even the patent filings are growing right now. I mean, I looked at some rankings recently, and so we are almost like sixth right now in the world in terms of patent filings. We were nowhere on the scene, and the subsequent speaker will talk more about it. And but even in terms of the quality of research, right? So though we are ranked third in the world for publications, even for the quality of research, we are ranked ninth right now in the world, which is again very good. But the problems come after that. The problem is we are ranked 40th for innovation. The definition of innovation is generating value for research. Now, if you have published a paper, what value has come out of that paper? Has somebody used that research and then built some product, or have we built any products out of the research that we are publishing? So that if we look at, while India is publishing so many papers, but only when it comes to using that knowledge for a societal benefit or for generating any value to anyone, on that count we are ranked 40th right now. So that is where we can do better. We should be able to make use of our research more effectively, for societal good. I think that somehow doesn't happen in the country. But one of the reasons for that is we are also not spending enough money on the higher education. Everywhere it's a struggle, and we are ranked 54th in the world today out of some 130 countries for percentage of GDP allocation for R&D, and so which is not a good sign. India needs to spend more money because there is so much of talent in these institutions, and if we can even fund more and more translational research projects, I do believe a lot of good things can come out of this research. We need to establish centers where we can create these facilities for translation research. So we are not spending enough money. I mean, that is a problem with all successive governments. It's about 0.6% right now when it comes to our spending on higher education. And more importantly, and the worst when it comes to the entire metrics, the academia industry collaboration, 66th right now out of some 130 countries studied. So which again is a very pathetic condition to be in. I mean, this is actually the reason why our innovation potential is so low right now. So the if industry collaborated with academia, we generate the knowledge, we generate the new knowledge. Industry comes and looks at that knowledge, uses the knowledge for benefiting, whatever they are doing as products. Then things would have been very, very different. But unfortunately, the gap that exists between academia and industry is what is hurting our innovation potential. From research to innovation, the bridge is basically the academia industry collaboration. And since that bridge is broken right now, I think the research remains as publications, and it doesn't get converted into innovation. So these are the things that we need to change very consciously if anything has to change in this country, when it comes to innovation. The We are, like I said, third in the world. Of course, we are way behind China and US. While every fifth paper comes out of China, every sixth paper out of US, every 20th paper comes out of India right now. But we are still ranked at the third position, which is not bad at all, considering that we are not spending enough money. Still researchers are struggling to get things to put all the results together and publish some good papers. But India is also one of the fastest growing countries when it comes to scientific publications. We are growing at 11% as compared to the world average of 4%, which again is pretty good. And so, as I said, because if you put all this together, we are not spending enough money, but we are still able to write so many papers. So, obviously, per dollar spent, Indians are writing more papers than anybody in the world, even compared to China or any other country. So therefore, we are ranked number one in terms of papers written per dollar spent, which again is good. But the biggest challenge for India lies in translation of the knowledge into wealth. While the funds that are given to us, we have become experts at converting that money into knowledge. But when it comes to converting that knowledge back into wealth, we seem to figure nowhere, and we don't even know how to convert that knowledge back into wealth. So this is the challenge that exists today with the Indian academic system, and that is something that we need to address very consciously. And if we don't do that, then the research will not become sustainable. We will take money from governments, keep on spending, but if governments start looking at there is nothing coming out of this research other than some publications, I think governments will lose interest and will lose trust in academia. And I think that's a situation which is very dangerous for the country. So we need to start focusing on translation of knowledge into wealth. So how do we actually do that? So that's the big question. And so, as I told you, any area you take, India is doing very well, right? Quantum, nano, bio, we are in the top five kind of countries when it comes to research. These are all data I have taken from the Scopus kind of searches. And if you look at the unicorns today, right, there are over 100 unicorns. There are specifically something like 107 unicorns today in the country, right? Almost every month now, there is a new unicorn coming about. Some of these companies have also lost the unicorn status, but this list here shows, all these companies have achieved the unicorn status at some point in time. Some may not have, remained as unicorns, but some still are unicorns or decacorns even. But so these are the companies that have attained that status at some point in time. But if you look at closely in all these, or what is common in all these companies, none of them is a deep tech product base. There are not selling a product, which you can touch and feel. There is nothing of that nature. Most of them are business model innovations, more like the aggregation model, right? So something was available, there were so many restaurants. Somebody came and aggregated all the restaurants and created a company and became a billionaire. Somebody aggregated the taxi services. Somebody aggregated the carpenters. Somebody aggregated the dobbies. So these are all that kind of companies. I call them all the business model innovations, where India has done very well. The IT, e-commerce, fintech. So these are the sectors where you find all these unicorns, to be playing a major role. But when it comes to deep tech product innovation, right, where you are, developing a diagnostic kit for a medical disease, or you are developing a detector for explosives or food quality. I think when it comes to those deep technology kind of innovations, we still have a long way to go, and we don't have a single unicorn today in the country, which are actually product-based kind of unicorns. And but that is where the academic institutions need to play a major role. There are three aspects to any academic institution. Academic institutions impart knowledge, right? Whatever is available in textbooks, we teach it to our students. We also generate new knowledge through research. So on education and research, most of our institutions do very well, but our challenge lies when it comes to innovation. when it comes to using this knowledge for a societal, for the societal good, for the societal benefit, then our academic institutions are pretty weak, on that count. While we are good in education and research, when it comes to innovation, we are pretty, our academic institutions, are weak, on that scale. So that is something that needs to change. Now everybody is talking about semiconductor manufacturing, right? I mean, the fabs and foundries, everyone is talking of the new foundries that are coming up and all of that. But I have been writing articles in newspapers about it. What happens if there is a foundry in India? Let's say all these efforts succeed, and then there is a foundry in India which is actually manufacturing very advanced chips, right? Today, these chips are getting manufactured in Taiwan, in Korea, in US, in other European countries, and in Singapore. Now, some of them will get manufactured in India, right? So it doesn't actually change anything. So the where you buy the component now makes no difference, whether it is made in Taiwan or in India. But for the country, of course, it will save some foreign exchange, because you don't have to now import all your semiconductor chips. If some are locally manufactured, the hope is that it will generate some jobs. But would it impact the academic institutions? Would it impact our innovation potential? If we just get a technology from somewhere, set up a foundry, nothing is going to change. But imagine, you develop new technologies now in the country for meeting the country's requirements, and then you use these foundries to manufacture these technologies. Then there is an innovation that can happen. So therefore, that is where the academic institutions can collaborate with all these the semiconductor foundries, which hopefully will happen in India now. And then, unless that academia industry collaboration becomes strong, unless academia starts developing these solutions and uses these foundry services to churn out new products, new chips for meeting the country's requirements, then something big can happen out of this semiconductor manufacturing. You also see the case of automotive manufacturing. 20 years ago, we were nowhere on the scene when it comes to automotive manufacturing. All the cars, the only cars we had when we were growing up, were Maruti. Maruti came during our time. And before that, it was all some Fiats and Ambassadors and very old kind of cars. But now Maruti came. Now almost every automotive manufacturer is manufacturing out of India. But are we building Teslas? Are we innovating in terms of automotive sector? We aren't actually doing anything significant there. If that was the case, our mechanical engineers must have been in great demand. But today, nobody wants to do mechanical engineering because they don't see, too many jobs available and all of that. Again, the situation has happened because getting technologies from somewhere, just manufacturing these low-end kind of things in the country is not going to change the innovation ecosystem in the country. So unless we get these foundries, make these industries to collaborate with academia through a variety of academia industry kind of collaborative schemes, I don't think anything will change with all of this manufacturing that will happen in the country. So, but one area where India, for example, can make a big difference is sensors, right? The sensors is what comes under the name called IoT, the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things market by 2035 will be like $1 trillion, right? The entire semiconductor industry today is about $600 billion. The sensors market alone in the form of IoT will be $1 trillion. India ranks fifth today in the world when it comes to sensors research. Now, can we connect these researchers, with this semiconductor initiative, build new sensor platforms, build new sensors for India's applications, package them like IoT, and can we actually capture the world's market, for the IoT kind of technologies? If we can do that, combining our academic research potential with the product kind of requirements, I would see that a lot of things can happen. But that's again where academia and industry need to come together, identify the gaps in the society, identify the strengths in academia in terms of research, put all of that together. So that's the kind of matchmaking that needs to happen. And unfortunately, in the country, no agency is actually doing that. So I, for one, I started my career in India in '98. Before that, I was in the US. I came back from US, joined IIT Bombay as a faculty member. And my areas of research, I started working on nanoscale devices, and that is still my primary research area. I have been working with a lot of industries for the nanoscale devices. Then around 2005 kind of time frame, and in nanoscale research, because of all these collaborations, a lot of good things came about, and Intel, for example, benefited very significantly, from the research that we did at IIT Bombay at that time, where I was a faculty member. And once we did this, but around 2005, 2006 kind of time frame, I realized that there is no point in working for all these semiconductor industries which are not even present in India, which are not even doing any manufacturing in India. And my collaborations were all with Germany and US. Kind of these companies, the headquarters in Germany and US. So I realized that there is no point in sitting in India and working for all these US companies. I said, why don't I do something for benefiting the society around me? So that was a kind of a very conscious decision I took. But by then, I was a well-known researcher in the nanoscale devices area. So I did not give it up completely. But I started a group at IIT Bombay to work on the sensors. And then I also started to combine the first two areas, and we wrote lot many papers. But in this talk, I will tell you my experience of sensors, because in this area from the beginning, I was very keen that I want to start a company. I want to commercialize the technologies. I want to develop products. I want to develop prototypes and then eventually commercializable products. So that was a very keen desire at that time. And therefore, whatever work I started, I was very keen that I only do things which are of societal benefit, societal importance, and so I very consciously started working on that. So therefore, I have told you how semiconductor mission that India has launched can help these startups. I will talk a little bit more about it. And I think any time you want to develop technologies, which have a commercial sort of an angle, you have to have stakeholder involvement. You cannot define these problems by sitting in your laboratory and then imagining some problem. For example, all of my research projects since 2005 have been developed in consultation with the stakeholders, whether it is security agencies or agricultural scientists or farmers. In all these cases, everything are medical doctors in another cases. In all these cases, I have been very consciously working with these end users of my technology so that their requirements I can take into account from day one. So that connect with the stakeholders is very, very critical if you want to ever commercialize any of these technologies. All of this research, I can guarantee you, will inherently become multidisciplinary. So if you are just, if you're not someone, who can work with people, right? If you just want to be in your lab and just do your own research, then you are not cut out to, do any of this product oriented research. Because the moment you want to develop a product which can go to the society or the field, you will have to consult many people. You have to learn to work with multidisciplinary kind of groups. So therefore, it's very important that this kind of a thing is nurtured in our academic institutions. But then one of the questions that many people ask me is, but in academic institutions, if I start developing products, how can I write papers? How can my PhD students graduate, and how will I build their careers? I think it's a challenge. So therefore, what you must do is you need to choose your projects very carefully. If you are choosing a problem, right, where the solution is already available in rest of the world, and you are only indigenizing something in the country, you will never be able to write good papers. Whatever you want to write, people say it's already done, it's already commercially available. Just because you are doing it in India for the first time, you cannot get a paper accepted at all of that. So therefore, you need to choose your problems very carefully and very wisely. So your problems need to have an international appeal. Though you are developing for the Indian society, but if there is any other similar product available elsewhere, you won't be able to actually do any great quality research. So choose problems which have a huge market in India, but which are also unique from the world point of view, right? Those kind of technologies are not available anywhere in the world. So these kind of problems, if you choose, your project becomes very innovative. You can write lots of good papers on that, but at the end of the day, you can put all that research together, to develop a product or a prototype for India's kind of use, because India is 1.4 billion people. If you can, even if you scratch the surface, you can build a unicorn out of, because of the large markets that we have. But your application, your technology needs to be fulfilling a pressing need in the society. Therefore, the problem definition becomes very important. And once you do that, once you develop a solution, a technology, of course, you can transfer the technology to an industry and then they can commercialize that. But in India, there are hardly any, manufacturing kind of companies, any technology kind of companies which are, indigenously developing these technologies. So therefore, it sometimes becomes very difficult in many areas. At least in my case, I have found the startup route as working very well for me. Both my startups have come about simply because I couldn't find any big industry. There was some public sector industries, but then I did not want to, work with the public sector because I did not believe that they will be able to commercialize some of these technologies and put in all the resources and time and effort needed to take them to the market. So therefore, I built a startup, and both my startups, Soil Sense and NanoSniff, are now established companies, and they're actually making revenues and all of that. So therefore, but for startup, the team building is important, the product development is important, the field trials are important. It's a separate, kind of a journey, that one needs to look into. And then you launch the product, and then you need to commercialize that. The marketing becomes very important for some of these. All of that expertise as a faculty member you will not have. So therefore, you need to have the right kind of people in your team. If you don't have those people, alone, you won't be able to do any of this kind of work. So therefore, the team building is important. The multidisciplinary nature of work is important. You need to be able to work closely with the stakeholders in defining the problem statements. All that becomes very important. So therefore, that is what you need to be doing in these academic institutions. So like I told you, sensors are important. I mean, everything eventually gets integrated around a mobile phone. Our mobile phone now has so many, different types of sensors integrated into that. And if you are looking for a problem, you don't have to look anywhere, right? India has so many problems now. After all, we need to provide, almost 1 million jobs per month. India needs to generate 1 million jobs per month, at least 10 million jobs per year, because with such a huge number of people below the age of 25, I mean, if you are not able to create that kind of jobs, there is going to be a social unrest. And no wonder even the elections are being fought on the job creation and all of that. So therefore, the people need to acquire skills. The youth need to acquire skills, and that is again the place where you can, build startups and you can build technologies. Agriculture, hardly anything has changed in agriculture. Again, in agriculture, you can do a lot of innovation. Healthcare, you just go away from the big cities. There's hardly anything existing in the rural areas, and every year so many people from those areas come to big cities for healthcare treatment purposes. And I think a lot of people go below the poverty line, because of that. And the security is a major concern. Energy is a major problem. Water is a major crisis. So therefore, you can do innovation in any of these areas, right? In each of these areas, one can spend their lifetime, because these problems, are pretty important for the country. We need to solve these kind of issues, and some of these will require a lot of time to actually come up with solutions. So having said that, there are so many challenges, that you can take up as problems in academic institutions. Like I said, when you're talking of sensors, we should talk of this Internet of Things, the complete system, which is important. And the moment you want to make a complete system out of a sensor, I can tell you, you will have to interact with material scientists, application specialists, engineers, scientists, social scientists, designers. So that sort of a thing becomes very important for this kind of an area. At the end of the day, the cost also, it becomes a major differentiator. Indian markets are all very, very cost sensitive. So therefore, you need to ensure that whatever product you are launching in the market, it meets the cost requirements of the end stakeholders who are your customers. So therefore, keeping the cost aspects in mind is also very critical. Now, since I have only another 10-15 minutes left, quickly let me look at at least one of the technologies that have developed, which is commercially available now in many airports. One of the things that we wanted to do was develop an explosive detector, right? And why an explosive detector? Because the commercially available explosive detectors are all very expensive. These are all spectroscopy based kind of systems, and so many airports cannot afford them. And so that was one of the things. And security agencies came to us and said, can you develop something which is like a sniffer dog, right? An electronic nose kind of a platform. Then we started working on it. We actually worked on a technology development, a cantilever based technology development for that. I won't get into so many of these details, but we did a lot of innovation, a lot of technology we developed to finally come up with this product. And so at least from 2025 PhD students graduated in developing these technologies. We developed the entire electronics also for that, and then we started using this cantilever platform for detecting the vapors of explosive, right? Like a sniffer dog would smell explosives, our sensor also, we said, needs to smell explosives, smell the explosive and give an indication to the handler, to the security person, that in the vicinity here I smell an explosive kind of a thing. So essentially trying to replace a sniffer dog. And so we worked on this technology based on array of sensors, and we developed what we call the XNIF, the kind of a platform. We gave it to security agencies. We published lots of papers on that, filed many patents on this. So we gave it to security agencies, but they came back and said, no, no, it seems to be a lot of false positives. In 3 out of 4 cases, it seems to work well, but at least 1 in 4 cases, it seems to not able to detect or detect something else as an explosive, and that won't work because every fourth measurement is an error. Will not work with any application. So they came back and said it's actually not working kind of a thing. That is when we started to look at another idea. So we said, how do we solve this problem? How do we improve the selectivity and accuracy of our measurement? So we came up with an idea for explosive detection, which we did not know at the time was unique. We said, what is the property of an explosive? The property of an explosive is to explode. So we said, why can't we collect a few nanograms of that explosive material and actually explode it, right? A 10 nanograms of explosive, when you explode, these are all high energy materials. The reaction tends to be exothermic. And but how do you explode these materials? We have to give it a shock, a mechanical shock or a thermal shock kind of a thing. Otherwise, these are very stable kind of material. So you collect a few nanograms of material, you give it a thermal shock, and then it explodes. When it explodes, it releases energy. That energy is what you measure as a temperature sensor. That was a neat, clean idea, that you are detecting explosive by actually exploding. If it is not an explosive, it won't explode. Therefore, you won't need to worry about it. And that was an idea that we came up with, and we filed a patent, and we realized that nobody in the world had come up with any idea like that. Nobody had thought of detecting explosives by actually exploding them. And once we found that, then we filed for Indian patents, US patents, European patents on that idea. All these patents are granted to us now. We own the worldwide patents for this explosive detection technology, a microsensor based explosive detection technology. This is actually the only product in the world today which is a microsensor based explosive detector. I have a small 3-minute video which I will show you, so that will give you idea about what I am talking. Advanced Technologies, an IIT Delhi incubated company, and Nanosniff, an IIT Bombay incubated company, jointly manufacture and launch Nanosniffer, an advanced and affordable explosive trace detector, screening visitors and passengers for explosives at various public or crowded spots have become the norm due to the increase in the terrorist activities around the globe. Every luggage and person passing through the security checkpoint is tested by the security officer to check whether they have traces of explosives on their surface, skin, or hair.
NanoSniffer proudly claims to be the first explosive trace detector in the world using microsensor technology. The microsensor of NanoSniffer is made using micro electromechanical system MEMS technology in semiconductor fab. The sensor uses fabrication techniques such as lithography, etching, deposition, spin coating, and finally released to the microsensor. The core technology is protected by patents in the US and Europe. All of our actions leave trace behind, which is then screened by the security personnel. The security has to concentrate at the sampling areas that are likely to be touched by hands. In the case of a bag, this will include handle, buckle, and zipper. Post sampling, the swipe is inserted into the system where microheater subjects the particles into rapid heating. In case of explosives, this trigger exothermic reactions which are picked up by the integrated temperature sensor of the microheater, thereby landing each compound in its own thermal signature. The algorithms use these signatures to distinguish between explosives and non-explosives. Further analysis of the algorithms help in categorization into the appropriate class of explosives. The follow are few nanosniffer features. It is the first microsensor-based ETD. It detects and identifies explosives in less than 10 seconds. Identifies and categorizes explosives into different classes. Can detect ng quantities of explosives traces. It detects all classes of military, conventional, and homemade explosives. It is portable and affordable. It gives visible and audible alerts with sunlight readable color display. NanoSniffer, explosives trace detection technology can be deployed at airports, railway stations, ports, malls, metro stations, corporate parks, hotels, and tourist spots. The goal is to intercept and prevent access of explosives trafficking. NanoSniffer is 100% made in India product.
Yeah. So this is what is now commercially available, and this was launched by the Minister of Education at that time. During the COVID time, it happened. That's why you see all of us wearing the mask. And now it has gone on to airports, and at least over a dozen airports in India have this technology. They use our explosive detectors for sampling the people, going to the airport, and so this is already there. And then we started miniaturizing that in the form of a sensor node. So that is a research that is happening in my group right now, trying to miniaturize it so much that you can put it in all buses and trains and network them into kind of detecting the presence of explosives in the bags and everywhere in the buses and trains. So we are, but one of the challenges in this is how do you power it? So we are generating the power from the vibrations in these buses and trains. So that's a project, and we have published lots of papers and integrating things. And so in my group, essentially, that is the kind of a research I do. So where you identify a requirement and then do research and then develop a prototype and then do the field test and then start a company and commercialize. So that is what I've shown you for explosive detector. We have been very successful. Exactly similar thing we did uh, for uh, for soil sensors, for agricultural sensors. In fact, you find my second company. I don't have time today to talk about it. The soil sense technologies. Here, we looked at the farmers' requirements. We looked at what are all the different sensors farmers require to improve the yield of agriculture, the NPK sensors, soil moisture sensors, and other kinds of sensors. So we developed a suite of these technologies now, and Soil Sense actually sells NPK sensors now, which are the world's cheapest NPK sensor. They have the technology now. They are even beginning to export it. So this is how we do that. So once we, these are all the technology products from Soil Sense which are available in the market, a complete weather station. And so now currently I am doing research on the radiation therapy. The cancer patients, require the radiation, right? But how do you measure the radiation? It's not just the total amount of radiation, but even the profile of radiation needs to be optimized to match the profile of the tumor. So therefore, you need to do those measurements accurately so that your radiation profile will exactly match the tumor profile, so you can, so that the healthy cells don't see the radiation. But how do you measure the radiation? How do you optimize the profile? Today people use very expensive technologies for that, and we have developed a simple organic transistor based explosive organic transistor based radiation sensor. So if you look at some of our papers determining ionizing radiation using sensors based on semiconducting material, low voltage operation and sensitivity improvement, passivated OFET sensors, so we filed a US patent. Even this US patent was granted to us quite some time ago, and now we are commercializing this technology. So now I have a group in Pilani, which is actually working on developing these radiation sensors for cancer therapy application. I won't get into that, but the idea here is to replace the current sensors with these extreme low cost sensors so that you can reduce the cost of treatment. So that's the kind of a thing that we are doing right now. And therefore, I told you how this can happen. So there is a lot of opportunity for semiconductor areas involving sensors. And in all of that, when you conceptualize your idea, the stakeholder involvement is very critical. I work with medical doctors right now, the radiologists, to identify the sensors specifications. Having a multidisciplinary team and developing the platforms where PhD students can contribute and publish papers, and generating a lot of IP in the process, and then start a company and take it to the market. But these things take time. The explosive detector took me full 10 years, starting from the idea stage to getting it to the airports. It was a 10-year journey. And the soil sensors, we took about 5 years because we had gained a lot of experience of developing products. Now I am hoping that our organic sensor based radiation dosimeters, can take another 3 to 4 years before they can get into the market. So that's how we are currently working on. And so addressing the bottom of the pyramid is important. There are so many requirements in the society, and R&D in academic institutions, need not be driven by what is happening in America and Europe. We need to invest in areas where there is a domestic demand. And local R&D for product development is essential for reducing the cost and making it applicable for India. It is possible to do high quality research in academic institutions in India, and it make it relevant to India's needs. And there are multiple government of India initiatives now. Both my startups benefited from the BIRAC grants, so that's how they were able to survive. And once they were able to sell a product and all that, then there were a lot of private investors who came and invested in this company. So, but use the government grants initially, which is very important for success of your startup. I think that's all what I have. And my final line is creativity in our higher education sector is as important as literacy at grassroots level. Thank you very much, and thanks for your attention.